Alright, Ollie friends, today I wanted to make a bit of a special video. I find that a lot of my videos are basically me giving you my opinion on writing, and that's okay generally. I mean, it's ultimately my advice, so it's fine, but I think there are a lot of subjects in writing that even I don't feel like my advice is meaningful enough because there's always things that are based on opinion ultimately. And I try to stay away from things like that because, if I'm just giving you my opinion on something, it's not exactly like, I don't think it has that great value. But I still want to talk about those things because I don't want to just have a bunch of subjects that that I'm never gonna touch on. So I thought, you know what? Let's do something different. Let's not do a lecture. Let's not do an exercise. Let's make more of an open forum. I bring a subject. I give you my opinion on it, my absolutely biased opinion, and then you share your opinion in the comments. Ultimately, we're all writers, and we all want to get better, and I know very well that I don't hold all of the answers, I don't know everything, I just know a few things, and I've come to gain a lot of advice from other writers, so along the way, I've picked up lessons and ideas and other things. So I thought, you know what? I don't have the answers, and maybe you don't as well, but maybe all of us together combined can come up to a nice consensus or some sort of greater lesson that we couldn't have gotten otherwise. I think that when people come together and share their opinions, great things happen, And even if we don't find, a middle ground where everyone's happy, or at least a greater lesson that we can all appreciate, even then we still talked about writing. I think that writing gets shrouded with a lot of mystery because, most writers don't know what the heck is going on, and that's okay. But I think that at least among us, we should just talk about writing, and because really that's like the best part of writing courses in college and university, because there are places where you are forced to sit down and talk about writing. So let's create that, because that's really what I love the most about the Virtual Writing Academy, is that just like writing courses, I force you to sit down and write. So this time around, let's force you to sit down and talk. Let's share our opinions in writing. So with all of that said, what is today's subject? Well, today's subject is filler. I get so many questions about filler, and I think the worst part about it is that my advice for filler is entirely based around my biased opinion. Now, before I go any further, let's just once again clear up the format for these videos. I will share with you a couple of questions, I will answer those questions myself in my totally biased opinion, and then you will go and share your opinion in the comments, and then we'll talk and, find out what we learned. I may even make a follow-up video to this, because again, I feel that when writers come together and talk about things, great things happen. So with all of that said, what are today's questions? What do you define as filler? And do you think it's a good or a bad thing? Now, what do I define as filler? I define filler as content within a book or story that has been added there to increase the length of said story. It's the sort of things that when you look back at them, you ask yourself, what was the point of this? None of this was meaningful to the story. It didn't tell me anything new. What was the point of this if not for just making the story longer? Now, do I think filler is a good thing or a bad thing? I am incredibly biased against filler. I don't like filler. To me, it always feels like the writer is wasting my time as the reader. I'm a really busy person and I work a lot. I'm always running all over the place working and doing something. So when I finally make the time to sit down, it kind of hurts me when a writer has gone out of their way to write something that's just not meaningful at all to the story. And this goes for every, no matter how much I like a writer, I still have to call them out on that. There is one particular chapter in The Portrait of Dorian Gray that is entirely meaningless. The one chapter where Dorian is traveling the world and it's nothing but 20 pages of what Dorian did, and it's just so incredibly meaningless to the story. That entire chapter can be summarized with Dorian Gray traveled the world and the seven seas because everybody's looking for something. That's it. And none of the things in that chapter are ever referenced again, and none of the things that happen in that chapter are ever meaningful to his character. He doesn't grow through that chapter. It's just, next thing we cut back, we cut it later, 10 years later in the story, and we pick up with Dorian again. Now, don't get me wrong, The Portrait of Dorian Gray is probably my favorite classic novel of all time. I love The Portrait of Dorian Gray. It's a great story, and seriously, I love it, but I have torn that chapter out of my copies because I despise that chapter. To me, it's just a waste of time. That being said, I am level-headed enough that sometimes I understand that filler works. The first example that comes to mind is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I read that book, and it was a really odd book to read because I came in with all of the things I heard about it, in pop culture and stuff like that. And when I read the book, I'm like, this is nothing like I expected it to be, and that was a good thing. But the one thing that always bothered me about that book is that it has so much filler. There's just so many scenes that are kind of little things that happen that don't seem to have any sort of meaningful importance to the plot. And even now, I feel iffy about it, but I cannot deny that it worked. Because that's the thing with me. Like, there's a lot of things that I don't like in writing. I don't like black or white morality. I don't like power fantasies. I don't like filler. But if you can make a story and you make it enticing and exciting enough and compelling enough, I'll buy it. And that's the case with Lolita for me. Because Lolita has a lot of filler and a lot of really odd filler because, like, you jump 5 years in between, like, 10 pages, and a character who should have gotten like an entire book based on them just gets a couple of paragraphs. It's kind of ridiculous. And yet at the same time, you have an entire chapter dedicated to playing tennis, which I know was kind of meaningful to the story, but you don't get that punch until the very end. If anything, it was thinking about Lolita again that got me thinking about this, because I personally don't like filler. I really don't. But there are times when it works. And that's kind of the impetus for this sort of video, because I find that as human creatures, we're really hypocritical. We can believe one thing and believe the entire opposite of that at the same time, and that's not exactly a bad thing. It's not exactly a bad thing. It's the silly way that we are as humans, and I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to bring this out on the table and make an open forum, hearing what you have to say, now that you have heard what I have to say. I guess ultimately for me, bad filler boils down to the moment when I finish the book and I look back on the book and I think to myself, were any of these segments important? Were they really anything more than padding to make that story the perfect 280-page requirement for publishing? And as you can notice, this has been a really different video already, huh? That's why, particularly with filler, I try not to talk about it, because it's a really personal thing. It's a sort of thing where it's like, what sort of ice cream do you prefer? And it's like, do you like vanilla? Oh my god, everybody loves vanilla, pick something exciting, right? Which is an actual conversation that I have with my editor every time we talk about ice cream. My god, pick something exciting. So I think you understand why I didn't want to make a formal video giving advice on filler, because it's a very personal thing. So now that you know how I feel about it and my very, very biased stance on it, how about you share your opinions in the comments? Again, just take a moment to answer the questions. How do you define as filler, and do you think it's a good or a bad thing? Let's talk about it. Let's make it a conversation. I love interacting with all of you, and I love answering your questions and your comments, and let's talk about it. Let's make it a discussion. Because I know that my opinion is not set in stone, because even I am level-headed enough where I can see that sometimes filler can work. But maybe there's something I'm not seeing. Maybe there's something that's a greater purpose that I've completely missed, because I don't have all the answers, and I sure ain't perfect. So, let's talk about writing. Leave your comments below, leave your thoughts. I totally want to read them and hear what you have to say. Aside from that though, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you want more. And if you would like even more writing content such as positivity, prompts, and advice, you can head over to my writing blog over at maxkieran.tumblr.com. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I hope to be hearing from you soon. Mwah! And in case you are wondering, my favorite flavor of ice cream has got to be Neapolitan, because it's like 3 flavors at the same time.